Let's talk to Harold the H. Peacock. He's going to tell us a story about a ghost shipwreck that exists today in the Bremer. And I've got my snorkel goggles and flippers. And after the program, I'm going to deep dive the Bremer.
Oh, well, we better tie a line into you so we can pull you back out.
Well, because there's a lot of bull sharks. Let's talk to Harold. Are you there, H?
Yeah, good morning, Danny. Definitely go diving into the Bremer. There is history there as we speak.
So, H, as you know, you may not know, along the bottom where Walter Williams lives, down there on the bottom there, Granny told me there used to be brothels along there in the old days, and they'd bring them in on the paddle steamers, get out, whoosh the clender handle, way hey whoa, back on board and take them back to Brisbane. Did you know that?
Well, yes, I knew that. I've researched that for you before, but I don't know whether you're going to be finding any of that stuff at the bottom of the Bremer, though.
No, not a Null Harriet or someone, but can you tell us about this shipwreck? Is this true?
Yeah, and it's all to do with the old Harlan Road Brassel Bridge that was built back in 1919. Now, it was called the Harlan Road Bridge back then, and it was paid for by both the Ipswich City and Brasselshire councils, thanks to the usual loan from the state government, but also, unusually, with private subscriptions of £700 from the people of Brassel themselves. Now, the construction was overseen by the Ipswich City engineer, Frank Griffiths, who was in the job, or he would be in the job for 27 years. And this bridge was one of his first big projects. Now, the firm chosen to do the work was the Taylor Brothers Contractors. Now, they did big contracts right across Queensland. They built bridges at Charleville and Longreach, Urangan Pier at Maryborough, the Woody Point and Redcliffe jetties, and even Brett's and Dalgetty's wharves in Brisbane. They did them all over the place.
Wow.
Now, one of their partners was Arthur McLean. Now, he wasn't a Taylor brother, but he was a brother-in-law. Now, he was a licensee of the Royal George Hotel at Marburg, and his son was awarded a military cross and an MBE in the First World War. Another partner was Edward Taylor. He was one of the brothers, obviously, and his nephew was Gerald Nolan. Now, he was the Rosewood chemist who moved to Ipswich and gave Nolan's Corner its name. It's the corner of Brisbane Nicholas Street, just down the road from you in West Bremer Radio there, just across the road from St Paul's Church of England. That's Nolan's Corner, and so that's got a connection to this wreck story as well. Now, Taylor Brothers, they had a motor launch and barge that had been used to haul timber from Fraser Island to the mainland. In 1916, they brought them up the Bremer River to Ipswich to work on the Harlan Road Bridge. Now, when it was finished, the launch was moored in the river above the railway bridge and near the bend in the river. There was some criticism of the bridge, however, Danny. It was too low, too narrow, and it was even built in the wrong place. Now, even though the bridge takes the name of Harlan Road, it actually joined Kingsmill Road and Hunter Street. Harlan Road had nothing to do with where it was finally built. Another strange thing involved the Harlan Road Brassel Bridge League. That was the committee of local residents who saved and raised that £700 to help pay for the bridge. But one of the leading proponents didn't live long enough to see his bridge finished because he died just before it was done. Ironically, he was a dead man. That was his name, Danny. Albert Deadman. He died. And strangely, the bridge was never officially opened. Ipswich City Council was happy for an opening, but the council on the other end of the bridge, which by then was the Moreton Shire Council, they didn't want to pay for its share. So the opening never happened, which was most unusual. Yeah, the bridge was in full use in 1921 when, of course, inevitable floods came to town. Now, in northern New South Wales, 2 people were drowned in Wollongbar when the flood hit record levels. It even passed the 1893 flood by 2 feet. And, of course, the Bremer River flooded here in Ipswich, of course, and it was then that the Taylor Brothers launch disappeared. It had been moored in the river above the railway bridge, but then there was no sign of it. It just vanished. However, Danny, in 1947, 26 years later, the wreck appeared of a 30-foot sea-going motor launch fitting the description of the Taylor brothers' vessel.
Wow.
It was in the Bremer River above the Ipswich traffic bridge. The ship had been sunk in the 1921 flood.
Oh.
And more than a quarter of a century later, the timbers began to show every low tide on the sandbank above the Bremer River. For decades, the boat continued to appear. In fact, it's still there somewhere in the mud today, Danny. It hasn't been moved. It's around 120 years after she was built, and she's a ghostly reminder of a dead man and the bridge that was never opened.
Wow, Damien, have you got your snorkel goggles and flippers as well?
No, because last time I went down to the Bremer River, they tried to roll me back out.
Fair enough. Well, I thought you might want to join me in a search in the mud for that shipwreck.
I'll sit on the bank and watch.
It's very interesting how you found that story out there, Harold the H.
Yeah, 120-year-old shipwreck in the Bremer, just above the bridge there, and it's worth finding just for Albert's dead man. Like, who doesn't want to support the memory of a dead man?
Now, how do we find and read this story and other great stories about Ipswich?
Yes, you can go online to historyouthere.com. This will be posted first thing tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, with photos and stuff. Historyouthere.com.
There he is, Harold the H. Peacock.
That was in stereo.
And you'll also hear him on the breakfast show, won't you?
Yes. Every Friday morning we like to replay so that we can get another bite of Ipswich history.
On West Bremer Radio at 8:22.